Welcome back to History of Simple Things. Today's topic comes from one of our viewers, Glenn Lego. Thanks for the suggestion. You asked, what exactly is agave syrup? And is it really a healthy sugar substitute? If you've ever browsed the sweetener aisle, flipped through a health blog, or tried a recipe that promised a better alternative to sugar, chances are you've run into agave syrup. It's sleek, it's marketed as natural, and it carries this reputation of being the guilt-free sweetener of choice. But does it really live up to the hype? Or is it just another form of sugar in disguise? Stick around as we dig into the fascinating story of agave syrup, right here, on History of Simple Things. Agave syrup, sometimes called agave nectar, starts with the agave plant, a succulent that grows mainly in Mexico. If the name sounds familiar, that's because the same plant is also famous for producing tequila. The agave has thick, spiky leaves that store a sugary fluid at its core, known as the piña, because it looks like a giant pineapple once harvested. For centuries, indigenous people of Mexico used agave sap in its raw form as a sweetener, and even fermented it into a drink called pulque long before tequila came into the picture. Modern agave syrup, however, is not just sap dripped straight from the plant into your coffee. The process is far more industrial. The juice is extracted, filtered, and then heated, or treated with enzymes to break down its natural carbohydrates into simple sugars, mainly fructose. What ends up in the bottle is a golden liquid that looks a bit like honey and pours like a thinner version of maple syrup. It's sweet, sometimes even sweeter than table sugar, which is why it has become popular in everything from smoothies to baking recipes. Part of agave syrup's appeal comes from the way it's marketed. The big selling point you'll often see is that it has a low glycemic index. In plain terms, that means it doesn't spike your blood sugar as quickly as regular sugar or even honey. For people who are diabetic or simply trying to manage blood sugar levels, that sounds like a dream come true. Add to that the fact that it comes from a plant and is labeled natural, and suddenly it feels like a wholesome alternative to refined white sugar. There's also the perception that because it's used in health-conscious recipes, vegan diets, or organic products, it must automatically be good for you. After all, it's not uncommon to find agave syrup drizzled on top of guilt-free desserts or suggested as a better choice in wellness blogs. But the story gets a little more complicated once you look beyond the label. Here's where the health claims around agave syrup start to unravel. While it's true that agave syrup has a low glycemic index, that's largely because it is very high in fructose, sometimes 70% or more, compared to about 50% in regular table sugar. Fructose behaves differently in the body than glucose. It doesn't immediately raise blood sugar, which sounds great, but it also doesn't signal to your brain that you're full. That means it can encourage overeating. More importantly, the liver is the only organ that can metabolize large amounts of fructose. Consuming too much puts extra strain on the liver, and over time, it can lead to fat buildup, insulin resistance, and even metabolic issues. In other words, the very thing that makes agave syrup seem better, its high fructose content, is also what makes it potentially problematic if consumed regularly. So, how does agave syrup stack up against other sweeteners? Compared to refined white sugar, it's still sugar. It just comes in a liquid form and tastes sweeter, which means you might end up using a little less. Against honey, agave lacks the same range of nutrients and enzymes that raw honey contains. When compared with maple syrup, It doesn't have the antioxidants or minerals that make maple more than just empty calories. And when you put it next to non-nutritive sweeteners like stevia or monk fruit, it's clear that agave syrup doesn't offer the same benefit of being nearly calorie-free. This doesn't mean it's evil or that you need to avoid it at all costs. In small amounts, it can absolutely be part of your kitchen lineup. It dissolves easily in cold drinks, mixes well in cocktails, and has a neutral sweetness that doesn't overpower other flavors. But the key is to see it for what it is, a sweetener, not a superfood. At the end of the day, agave syrup is a refined product that's not very different from other forms of sugar. Yes, it comes from a natural plant, but by the time it reaches your pantry, it has been processed and concentrated to maximize sweetness. It may have a low glycemic index, but that doesn't make it harmless. If anything, its high fructose content means it should be consumed with the same level of caution you'd give to soda or candy. That doesn't mean you need to throw away the bottle you have at home. Used sparingly, agave syrup can still be a handy sweetener, especially in recipes where you want a smooth, mild flavor. The real issue comes when it's treated like a health food and consumed in large amounts under the assumption that it's doing your body a favor. So, is agave syrup really a healthy sugar substitute? Not exactly. It's better to think of it as just another option in the wide world of sweeteners. It may be trendy, it may come with clever marketing, but when it comes to your health, moderation is still the name of the game. If you enjoy the taste and convenience, go ahead and use it, but don't fool yourself into thinking it's a nutritional upgrade. After all, whether it's sugar, honey, maple, or agave, too much of any sweetener tells the same story. Sometimes the healthiest choice isn't about finding the perfect sugar substitute. It's simply about learning to live with less of it. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other bingeable channels. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.